What do you think about the theory that is not written down anywhere, but certainly is talked about a lot, that the current Republican leadership has applied to some votes, which is you don't pass legislation unless there is a majority of the majority, meaning a majority of the Republican Party. And presumably, if the Democrats were to be in power, they might start doing the same thing. We don't want to pass legislation that is not preferred by the majority of our majority. Well, what do you think is the effect of that policy on policy and on the public interest?
It's bringing a smile to my face, and I'll tell you why. That just plays into the hands of people like me, the centrists, the moderates, because that's exactly what has happened in this Congress. The minority is convinced that they've got to go with opposing everything the Republicans propose, almost right down the line. So the Republicans in the majority realize that the only way we can get anything accomplished is to get a majority of the majority, and to get 218 out of 231 is very difficult if you have 15 or 20 moderates or centrists going off in a different direction. So that makes what I like to call the moderates moment surface. And the moderates have a disproportionate influence to their numbers right now, and no better example than the budget deliberations, when we had that budget reconciliation bill within the past year that passed by just 2 votes. Not a Democrat voted for it. And the Republican initial proposal was unacceptable to a number of us who were moderates. We thought it was foolhardy to talk in terms of denying food stamps to hundreds of thousands of more people. We thought it was foolhardy to do some other things like that, and we said, no, we're not going to support it. So we became, in effect, empowered, and the leadership had to listen to the moderates. In the last meeting, the Speaker and the acting majority leader, this was after Tom DeLay had stepped down as majority leader, Roy Blunt was the new acting majority leader. The last meeting the Speaker had before the early Friday morning vote was at 11 o'clock in his office with Mike Castle, a colleague of mine from Delaware, a leader of the moderates, and me. And we sat down with the Speaker and acting majority leader Blunt to go over some things in our own mind. Let's see, you've agreed to take this out, and you've agreed to add this, and we just wanted to make sure, because first of all, we're dealing with a guy of unquestioned integrity in my mind, the Speaker. I didn't need a signed document, but I just wanted to clarify, as did Castle, that this is the agreement. And he said, yes, we agree to do this. Yes, we agree to do that. No, we're not going to do that. But so we got our whole list, and we walked out satisfied that we really had a favorable impact on the budget reconciliation package. And the early hours of the next morning, it passed by 2 votes. And the moderates made the difference.
Well, you're absolutely right that even though the moderates in the Republican Party are a small and shrinking number, which I want to ask you about, and have had tremendous influence on that, on salvaging some social programs and on getting the House of Representatives to vote in favor of stem cell research and on preventing oil drilling in Alaska. Nevertheless, the number of moderates is shrinking, and moderates in the 2006 campaign are fighting for their political lives in very, very tough races. So I guess my question is, isn't it getting harder to be a moderate? Harder working with your more conservative colleagues in your party, harder getting Democrats to work with you, and harder to get reelected?
Well, I would have some argument with your idea that the moderate ranks are shrinking. Now, this is before the election we're talking about, and I will concede that the moderates are usually in more difficult races because they tend to represent districts that are more balanced in the registration. I mean, there are probably 350 or so of my colleagues running in a district where the opponent doesn't have a snowball's chance, and where of winning. You get the nomination of your party. If you're from central New York City, On the Democrat line, you get by the primary, you're guaranteed you're going to win. The Republicans can spin their wheels forevermore and spend $1 jillion. They're not going to win. And you're from other districts that are very Republican in nature, and the same thing holds true. So the moderates tend to represent districts that are more balanced, and they're under siege because the opposition, the Democrats, see opportunities in closer districts. But the moderates' ranks, I would maintain, are actually increasing because there are some people that are sort of silent about their affiliation. Not everybody wants to affiliate with a bloc in the Congress, whether they're Republican or Democrat. A lot of members prefer the luxury of saying, well, I'm not affiliated with any group. I just call them as I see them, and I just give my all every single day. But I'll take a couple examples. I have got the clean bill to increase the minimum wage.
And by that you mean a bill that is not encumbered by any other issue.
And it's a Republican proposal. When I started out, there was one co-sponsor, me. The present federal minimum wage is $5.15 an hour. And my bill would incrementally raise that to $7.15. Well, more and more, I'm getting more members to come aboard because I'm arguing on the merit of the case, not just that we haven't had an increase in the minimum wage since 1997, but I will go to a colleague, for example, from New York, a Republican, who might have some quarrel with whether or not the federal government should be involved in determining a minimum wage. And I'm able to convince that individual that, look, guess what? In New York, the minimum wage is already well above $5.15. In some states, it's approaching $8 an hour. In New York, on January 1st of next year, 2007, it's going to be $7.15. So I say to them, doesn't it make sense, if you're going to be faithful to your representational duties for your district and your state, to level the playing field? I mean, in my own congressional district, the southern part of my district borders on Pennsylvania, Tioga County. We've got one small community, Owego. It's home to Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is growing by the hundreds of new jobs because they've just had some big new contracts, among other things, for the new presidential helicopter. But they're hiring left and right. But some of their suppliers want to locate closer to Lockheed Martin so they can eliminate the high transportation costs. Why would they, in their right mind, come to Owego, New York, if they have maybe 75, 80 people at the entry-level minimum wage, when they have to pay $7.15 when they go across the street in Pennsylvania, and it literally, well, it's across the bridge, then go right across the river and only pay $5.15 an hour? That comes up to some real money. So, Mabel, more and more of my colleagues, I find, are becoming more pragmatic and not so much ideologues.
Well, that's interesting. Now, that's an interesting observation because there has been such a sharp ideological definition of the party, the Republican Party, for the last few years. So you're saying what you're seeing now is evidence that that is beginning to change? Yeah,
but I look at, there's no fast movement forward. I mean, it's like the tortoise and the hare. But I see, rather than the moderates declining in numbers under the present circumstance and assuming that everybody is reelected, you can't assume that, I know, but assume that, the moderates' ranks are increasing slightly because more and more people are being told when they go back home, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, I just want you to deal with this. There's no Republican solution to the high price of gasoline or Democrat solution. There's got to be a solution that's good for America. And get on with it. Do something.